So, who am I? I've got over 45 years experience with computers, business systems in business. I've done dozens of investigations into, are you familiar with the term ERP?
No.
Enterprise Resource Planning System. It's the software that's used for running businesses. So you would have heard of SAP, Oracle, Sage, um, things like that.
Okay.
Okay. So dozens of investigations into failed and suboptimal ERP implementations, advising how to turn them around. I'm a professional engineer with bachelor's and doctorate degrees in engineering. I was a former military commander, grounding in economics, deep strategic understanding, strategic essence, and I've got deep executive experience. I'm very comfortable in the executive suite. So it's a fairly unusual combination of skills and then skill with taxonomies, etc. I make the claim that what I'm offering is turning the conventional industry on its head. And I'll explain more about that in a moment. Fundamental principle is engineers don't design bridges to stand up, they design engines not to fall down. And that's been a key principle throughout my career, understanding why ERP systems are not delivering what was promised and how to turn them around. So, what's different about my approach and why should you consider it? My methods are my own. They're developed from a first principles engineering, military, and strategy approach, and lots of practical experience. Very, very different to what people are taught in an IT degree or an MBA. They're proven in practice, learned by trial and error and practical observation, and they're not contaminated with the standard industry thinking that delivers 70% of suboptimal ERP executive outcomes. So it's totally different and dramatically better. The revenue opportunities for investors. I've got a methodology around ERP implementation remediation that I call the 7-step ERP accelerator. This is something that I've put together recently in the last few months, consolidating all my thinking into something which is working towards something that can be sold as a method of operation and that we can franchise to existing consultancies, etc. Then training and consulting on the same product, and I'm working on that at the moment. I will start advertising training within the next week or so. Once I've got the videos at a reasonable state, I'll share those with them. Then one of the pieces of software that I've had developed to support the previous 2 points, GL Builder, that's 15 years old. It needs to be rebuilt with AI components and can be much bigger than it is at the moment. Very powerful, takes ERP to a whole new level. Building on that, something that I call the financial analytical suite. Once there's highly structured data, then you can analyze it further. Together with that, I've developed a whole lot of work around strategy. I've got a set of tools which need to be converted into web-based AI software, and then that can be sold, etc. The challenge, I have a huge investment in IP, in method and principles. I'm flat broke. I'm not commercially astute. I need someone to guide me commercially there from the investor side. I'm not particularly good at marketing. I need someone to take charge of that. Most of the opportunities require a capital investment in software development services, product producing, polished process, documentation, and keeping things running until they're ready for marketing. And that's really the reason that we're here, I believe. What's a pulse measurement? Investigated dozens of implementations, advised clients how to turn them around, concise diagnostic information. And I just use that example of because I've done it so many times, I go in, I ask some key questions, I get the answers, and very quickly I can tell you why your ERP is not delivering. So much so that I've written a book about it. I've presented dozens of courses over the years in South Africa on these three topics. So I really know my material very intimately. The 7-step accelerator that I've referred to: diagnose, custody, align, decision, precision, prove it works, make it work. And there's a whole body of knowledge behind each of those, a whole body of methodology. I'm busy promoting that, as I say, right now. Once I've got that out the way, probably within the next 2 weeks, I will start producing methodology documents, checklists, charters, etc., to underpin each of these things with a view to presenting a 4-day training course by about the end of August as a paid event. Just to put this in context, ChatGPT reports that 70% of ERP systems fail to meet executive expectations. This was a query that I gave to ChatGPT on the 14th of May. Around the same time, Google, Gartner, 55 to 75% of ERP projects either fail or don't meet their intended objectives. And that figure of 70% plus minus has been around for over 20 years. I've been talking about it for 20 years, and the industry insists on getting better at doing the wrong things. ChatGPT sources, very wide range of very credible sources, so that number of 72% is well substantiated. Just a case study sitting in the office of the CEO of Anglo American Platinum Division, Neville Nicolau. This is about 2011. Neville, how would you rate your SAP R3 implementation? He said, operationally, I'd give it 8 out of 10. The business is running well, but at the strategic executive level, I'd give it 1 out of 10. I've got some very expensive people who spend most of the month pulling the information together for the board pack. And that's fairly typical. So you get this phenomenon. The CEO is saying, I've spent a lot of money and I can't get the answers to the questions I want when I want them. To counter that, a success story of V3 Consulting Engineers. The auditors just left after 6 weeks. Last year, they were here for 6 months. They signed off the balance sheet without qualifications for the first time in 15 years. We have masses of management information, profitability is improved, and we did it with one less bookkeeper. And I can do that for any organization. Another case study, African sales company facilitated growth. This was such a successful implementation that they had to build a bigger distribution center, and I don't think you can achieve more than that. Developed a highly analytical culture, positioned ASCO as an industry leader in the management of information, therefore brand management category, secured the Dior account, highly prestigious with an immediate 12% revenue uplift. Some clients, just about all of them in South Africa, except for Manning Impex, reasonably large Anglo Platinum, FTSE 100 company, Food Corp, a billion plus turnover group of 12 food manufacturing companies, and so forth. What am I talking about? So looking at that FTSE 100 company, Anglo Platinum, this is their chart of accounts. Do you understand what a chart of accounts is? Okay. So what you see here, there's absolutely no structure, there's no logic. It's like this jumbled mess of fasteners that you see in the photograph on the right. Their material group, a similar thing, aircraft jet engines, bicycles, and pipe fittings right next to each other. Complete shambles, and this is why Neville could not get the information he needed straight out of SAP and out of the SAP data warehouse. So this is what the 7-step process does. What's really different, executive custody and executive direction and facilitation. So I say that the chief executive has, because the ERP is transverse, cross-cutting across the whole enterprise, the CEO is the owner of that integrated holistic view of the business, and therefore the CEO must give the direction. There needs to be a strong focus on the strategic essence, precision configuration, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. It must model the real world. The process is a design output and not an input to implementation. That's a big thing, and I'll explain more in a second. Laboratory war games, user acceptance testing ++, and a contractual go live certificate. So my whole approach is very, very different. If you're familiar with the ERP industry, you would see that what I'm saying there is something that the ERP industry as a whole doesn't get right. It turns conventional ERP implementation thinking on its head. This is the diagram. You've got the CEO at the top, the ERP transfers. Each executive has to own their silo in the ERP. When I say top down versus bottom up, if you start at the top with strategy and the executive view of the business and you work down, you end up with a well-structured solution. But what the industry does, it starts at the bottom with process, and it's got no control over where it ends up, which is why you end up with these situations. You've got these big systems, and they can't answer strategic questions, and I have a way of dealing with that. What is strategy? Professor Malcolm MacDonald. Doing the right things viewed from the customer's perspective, doing things right from the customer's perspective. If you do the right things well, you'll thrive, and that's where my logo comes from. Incidentally, Malcolm has become a personal friend. If you do the right things not so well, your business will thrive. If you do the wrong things, your business will die. It's a matter of how quickly. The better you get at doing the wrong things, the faster the business will die. And I've seen some terrible things done with badly implemented ERP, including one that went bankrupt. What's my definition of strategy? The essence of why the organization exists and how it thrives. And it's a holistic, integrated picture of how the entire organization fits together and interoperates with the external environment to produce a thrive out. It's a much more holistic definition of strategy than you commonly come across. I have a partner, basically a sleeping partner, Paul Lee. He's been a client 3 times for my StratSnap process, and he moved to the UK a couple of years ago. We got together during the lockdown, but we were unsuccessful marketing, and he now has a full-time job. But I think if we had the right investment, he might come back to the team. The strategic planning tools, a whole spread of tools. These are all in Excel at the moment. Need funding to convert them to a web-enabled set of web-enabled web applications with AI, including AI. One of the things that comes out of it, 7 critical factors on the left, the executive team across the top. What you see there, ensuring appropriate people, processes, systems. One person thinks that's 7% of what's important to others think it's 25%. It's all around. I use this metaphor of a mountain, so that's a contour map of a mountain with two peaks. And basically what it boils down to, it's real that your executive team all see the business differently, but it's not appropriate for them all to climb the mountain their own way. You need to choose one way up the mountain, and my methods enable them to do that. Get a strategic trajectory. So this is an immediate health check of how the business is doing. And then if we come back to the computer side of things, the ERP, computers collect, summarize, synthesize, and present information. People interpret the results, take decisions, and take action. But you need to provide the information in a palatable way that it can be used. And the challenge is to get the right information to the right person in the right place at the right time in order to make the right decision. And if you make good decisions, your organization will thrive. And that's basically the thrust of what I'm offering. Approach to taxonomies. I did biology projects at school, taxonomies there, library catalog schemes I researched when I started my PhD. And we had military conscription in South Africa, and so I was in charge of the NATO filing system for a couple of years. So it's a world-class leading approach, and it's not in a textbook. Just to give that some sort of tangibility, if you wanted to hang this door on your house, you would need screws for the hinges, and you would expect to go into a hardware store and you would find the screws in a rack, as you see it on the right there, all neatly organized, so you could just go and pick off the packet of screws that you wanted. If you went into a hardware store and the screws were like that, and you said, tip it out on the floor, we're sure you'll find what you want, you'd go to another hardware store. And if you think back to those 2 examples that I showed you of the Anglo Platinum data, that's exactly what it looks like. And people are trying to sort out the mess, and it's impossible to sort it out. Well, it's not impossible. I have a way to sort it out. So what is precision configuration? Using the library as a metaphor again, on the right-hand side, you see a chart of accounts that I've developed, very structured, very hierarchical, very, very precise code schemes, enables you to do all sorts of things. This is another example. Product category, user-defined table. This is from ASCO. What this structure of the codes allows you to do is 2-click drill down. So I want to look at expenses, I double-click. I can see my admin expenses, I double-click. I can explode that, I double-click again, I can explode it further. I double-click and I can get down to the individual posting accounts and analyze. It's very, very quick to analyze. Another example, credit note reason codes. Basically can't answer any question. This is what we came up with, very structured, very easy to interpret. Another situation, the data is not in the database. I advocate adding user-defined fields, and there you see a few fields describing golf clubs for a golfing retailer. Cubic business model is something that I've developed. It's supported by pretty much all ERPs, and what I have here, I've developed. It took me 1,000 hours of unremunerated R&D to fully understand how it works. Very, very powerful behind the V3 success. This is the real world example of a cubic business model matrix. Each of those cells with two numbers in has its own little chart of accounts, which is used by the relevant managers. This is the GL Builder software that I mentioned earlier for building that cubic model. Precision ERP configuration. So on the left, you have the Anglo Platinum chart of accounts. On the right, you have a chart of accounts that I've developed. The product group on the left, Anglo American, on the right, something that I did for a gold mining company, for a coal mining company. Coming back to what it is, if you've got only about 3 items at any level in the hierarchy, it doesn't tell you very much. If you've got more than about 9, it's too cluttered. You can't make sense of it. You need about 7. It's called Miller's Law. And what that allows you to do is very quickly assess the data, drill down, and get your answer and take action when necessary. What do I mean by hierarchy? What you see there is 5 levels of hierarchy in a chart of accounts that I developed for a client. What does your company really have? I call this an IBIS. So you've got your ERP, call it Fred. You've got an industry-specific package. You've got a data warehouse and business intelligence. You've probably got some customization of the ERP. You've probably got some custom development outside those packages. You will definitely have a whole bunch of spreadsheets that are used to make sense of the data, and you may have other bits and pieces. That is the complexity of the systems that run a business of any size, and what I'm talking about fundamentally impacts all of that. So if we look at the data view of an integrated system, the general ledger is at the heart of things. It's the financial heart of your business information systems, and every module that has any financial component posts into the general ledger. Most ERPs have a human resources module, and any HR related stuff, again, posts to the HR module. And if you look at your production, you have a similar sort of thing. That can be accomplished at the data level, or it can be accomplished at the technical integration. People get a bit confused about that. The taxonomies are the missing link to getting that really right. So ideal data mapping between the ERP at the bottom, the business, the ERP, and the data warehouse and business intelligence. Straightforward, very clean mapping allows good decisions. What it actually looks like in practice, we've looked at that jumbled mess, and so they try and unscramble the jumbled mess in the data warehouse, and generally they don't do a very good job of it. So they're spending a fortune running a system that is highly suboptimal. There's an opportunity to remediate. So you start off with the jumbled mess that we mentioned. You drop in place precision taxonomies between the ERP and the data warehouse. That straightens out the data in the data warehouse. In time to come, you can drop that down into the ETL, the ERP, and eventually you have a really, really neat solution. Also very useful in acquisitions and due diligence investigations to allow you to map the existing target chart of accounts onto your chart of accounts and analyze it. So again, that brings us back to the 7 steps that are required to remediate the situation. The revenue opportunities, again, global franchising, training and consulting, GL Builder software sales, training and consulting, financial analytical suite software sales, training and consulting, Strategy Doctor global franchising, strategic suite software sales, training, facilitating, and consulting. The interesting thing about this, targets are for sales are any organization of more than about 50 people, 25 million turnover that has an ERP and wants to get better. Any management consultancy that's looking for a new area of growth, any ERP implementer who's realized that what they're doing is not working. So the market is potentially huge. The challenge, again, huge investment. I'm broke, not commercially astute, not particularly good at marketing. So I don't just need money. I need money either to pay people to help me to do this, or I need people from the investor who are going to be hands-on and help steer this. As I say, most of the opportunities require capital investment. How much? Very difficult to say. I did a spreadsheet on the strategy doctor a few years ago, which I shared with Jamie. And it's basically relevant here, but I'm basically sucking my thumb. I need somebody who's commercially astute to sit down with me on that model and say, right, add here, take away here, etc., etc.